Welcome! Today we're going to make chicken and biscuits. I really love this recipe. It is so easy to make, easy for kids with adult supervision, easy for adults on a busy weeknight. It's so easy. So what do we need for this recipe? First, we need the ingredients for the biscuits because we're going to make biscuits from scratch. So we need milk. I have whole milk here, but you can use any kind, 1%, 2% skim, or dairy-free. We're also going to need flour. I'm using an all-purpose, but you can also use gluten-free. And then we have salt and salted butter. And you'll also want baking powder. That is all we need for our biscuits. And then for the chicken and everything else part, we're going to need a rotisserie chicken, or if you have leftover chicken, or you can bake a chicken and then put that in this dish. You just want to make sure the chicken is cooked. You don't want to put raw chicken in this meal. And then you're going to need some vegetables. I use peas and carrots, and these are frozen. No need to unthaw. We're going to cook while we cook our dish. You can use other types if you want. If you want to add some corn in there or something else, you're more than welcome to. We're also going to need gravy. You can use a canned or bottle kind like this, or there are packets that you can add water to. Those work great too. You can do that as well. Or if you have a homemade gravy recipe, you're welcome to use that. So that is everything we need for ingredients. Then for supplies, we're going to need one bowl to mix our biscuits in. We're also going to need an 8x8 or similar sized dish to put everything into when we're done. And then we're also going to need measuring cups, measuring spoons, a fork. It helps with mixing up the biscuits, a knife for cutting the butter and cutting our chicken, or a firm spatula would also work, something like this for little hands. Again, adult supervision if kids are doing this, but little hands could use this to easily cut up the butter, or I'll also show you how to do the chicken without using a knife. And then a spatula is always handy in case you want to mix everything up once you have it in there. And a cutting board, just to keep everything neat and clean. So that's everything you need. So let's get started making our chicken and biscuits. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to preheat our oven. We want it all nice and warm, so when we have our dish ready, we can just pop it right in there. So we're going to set our oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're using Celsius, you can refer to the recipe sheet, and that will have the instructions. And I pulled my chicken off my rotisserie chicken. Again, if you have a baked chicken or leftover chicken, you can just gather it together, and you need 1.5 cups of that. And what you can do is you can either use just a regular table knife and use that to cut it into little cubes, or even easier, wash your hands and you can just start shredding it. Just kind of pull it apart. This is great for kids. This is how I've taught kids in my baking classes to do it. You just want to shred it. You want to wash your hands afterwards too. So I'm just going to shred it apart, and again I need 1.5 cups. And once you have that all shredded, you can put it into your baking dish. So I'm going to do that. Keep shredding. Doesn't take too long. You can just go like this and shred it all up. It's a really quick and easy dish. You just want it into smaller pieces so everybody gets a little bit of chicken and a little bit of all the other ingredients. Okay, that looks great. So I'm just going to throw that into my dish. That's my chicken. I'm going to wash my hands real quick. And then what we're going to add to this is we're going to add our peas and carrots, or what other frozen vegetables you're doing. Again, they can be frozen when you add them. They will warm up when you're baking them in the oven. And so what we need is 1.5 cups, same amount as the chicken, of our frozen vegetables. Again, you can measure it or you can eyeball it. For cooking, for this part of the cooking, it really doesn't matter. You just want enough for everybody. So about 1.5 cups, I'm just going to put some in. So 1.5 cups if you're measuring. So that's that. And then you're going to need to add your gravy. So I have a big container here. This is more than what I say on the recipe, and it's just easier on me. I just buy a big container. We like a lot of gravy on ours. But for the recipe, you need a 12-ounce can. You can do a little less, a little more, up to you. I like to cover everything a little bit, so there's enough. It will thicken up a little as it bakes with everything together. But I'm going to just add this. So again, your jar may be a little smaller. Oh, of course, I'm not going to be able to open it. There it is. So I'm going to add that. Perfect. There's a little more left in there. And then I usually just stir that up. So it's all mixed together. So while it bakes, everything will be all together and heated uniformly. Okay. Don't worry if it starts to stick together because the frozen vegetables sometimes will stick to everything. And if it doesn't look appealing now, don't worry. As it bakes up, it will look a lot better. So I'm just mixing it up so it's all mixed throughout. So everybody gets a little chicken, little vegetables, and some gravy. Like that. And now this would not be complete without our biscuits. So that's our next thing that we're going to add. So for our biscuits, actually let me put this over here. For our biscuits, you're going to need a small bowl or a medium-sized bowl. It doesn't have to be very big. And the first thing we're going to add is our flour. We're going to add 1 cup of all-purpose white flour or gluten-free flour if that's what you're using. So 1 cup. And as I've shown in other videos, how you want to measure your flour, you always want to scoop it into your measuring cup and then level it off. You never want to scoop it out or pack it down. By scooping it out, it does pack it down, so you don't want to do that because that can end up with heavier baked goods, heavier biscuits than we want. We want our biscuits nice and light. So 1 cup, I scooped it and then leveled it off. Add that to my bowl. 1 cup of flour. Then we're going to add 1/2 tablespoon of baking powder. And yes, I said tablespoon, not teaspoon. What we want is these are going to make the biscuits really rise. So they're going to be nice and light and airy. And that's what the baking powder will do. And so 1/2 tablespoon. You'll get to see a little bit of a science experiment here because it's going to make the dough bubble and everything and increase in size. So we're going to do 1/2 tablespoon. So I just measure that out, level it off. Add that right to my mixture. And then we're going to add a little salt to these. You'll see in a future video, I'm going to show you how to make strawberry shortcake, and I use a very similar recipe. This is our savory version of our biscuits, and we have a sweet version of our biscuits, and you'll see that in a future video. But for now, we're going to add some salt because this is our savory version. So we're going to add 1/4 teaspoon of salt to this. And when I measure salt, I always measure it to the side of the bowl or over a sink or a trash can. I never measure it directly over the bowl because you can end up with very salty baked goods if you spill a little extra in there. So I always do it to the side and then just clean it up afterwards. So you see a little more comes out, always does with salt. So that's why I do it to the side. Add that. So 1/4 teaspoon. And then we're going to just stir this up a little bit. Mix it all up so the baking powder is all mixed throughout. And this is just dry ingredients so far. It doesn't look very interesting. Let's add something a little more interesting. We're going to add our butter to this. So we have 2 tablespoons of salted butter. So if you have your butter, there'll be little lines on it. So you can measure out 2 tablespoons. And that's all we need, 2 tablespoons. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut this into smaller cubes. And that way it's going to spread throughout our mixture, make it a little easier. Sometimes what you do for recipes like bread recipes or biscuits and things, you add the butter and then you have to really mix it. It's a lot of work. This is going to make it really easy. We're just going to cube it so it's going to be spread throughout and we don't have to do a lot of that extra work. So if you want your butter nice and cold, and what I usually do, if kids are doing this, adult supervision is required. Adults may want to do this for your kids. And what we're going to do is we're just going to cut lines. So I've cut it across. I've cut like 5 or 6 lines on it. Then I'm going to go the other way. So I'll show you. So you see the little cubes? And then I'm going to go the other way, and that's going to cube my butter into little pieces that then I can easily spread throughout my mixture. And then, and it's okay if your butter starts to melt a little, it happens. You can just kind of break it off, but you should have some cubes, and you just kind of drop that into your mixture. Again, clean hands. And you're just going to drop it. And what that's going to do, it's going to spread all throughout your dough, throughout your flour, so that every bit gets a little bit of butter. And those little butter pockets, as they bake up, they're going to melt. They're going to leave little like nooks and crannies, little crevices in your biscuits as they melt. And that is good for our biscuits. Okay, and it will start to melt in your hands. Okay, so I have that all done, and you might end up with a little bit of butterfingers. That is okay. You can wash your hands again. Then I take like a fork. If you have a pastry cutter, you can use that, but a fork works great. And all I'm going to do is just kind of mix it up, push it down, like go like this, push pressure against the side of the bowl, and mix that all up. It really won't change how it looks. You're just kind of spreading that butter a little evenly throughout everything. You'll still have little clumps, little cubes of butter in there, and that is fine. Just kind of want to get it mixed up. Perfect. Getting attached to your fork, just push that off. See, it does not look any different than when we started, but it does make a difference how we did that. So now we're just going to add our last ingredient. We're going to add a half a cup of milk. There's some recipes where it does matter if you use a liquid measuring cup versus a dry measuring cup for liquids. For dry ingredients, you always want to use dry measuring cup. But for liquid, I use the dry measuring cup. For most of my recipes, it does not make a difference, and it's a little easier in my opinion. If you ever absolutely need to use a wet measuring cup, I will tell you in the recipe. But for now, we need a half a cup, 1/200 measuring cup of milk. So I'm just going to use my dry measuring cup. And since it comes out quickly, adult assistance may be required. Add that to your bowl. And take a spoon or a spatula, or you could use your fork, and just mix that up. Mix it till it's all combined. It's going to be a little thick, a little elasticy. And that's what we want. If you let this sit for a minute, you might see it start to bubble and everything from the baking powder, because once you add the milk, that's when that science experiment starts. And that's just expanding the dough. Okay, so this is what mine looks like. You can still see the chunks of butter in there, and that's fine. And what we're going to do with this, we're going to take our mixture of chicken and vegetables, and we're going to scoop out this dough. We're going to make 5 biscuits. You'll see, I'm just going to take a little scoop and make 5 of these. And you're going to probably have to use your thumb or a spatula to put, or a finger, to put it on top of your mixture. And then I kind of flatten it a little bit. So that's all I'm doing. So we're going to do 5 of those. Don't worry if they're a little different in size. You want to try to make them uniform so they bake evenly, but if they're a little different, that's okay. Okay. So I'm just adding those. And again, we're making 5. And I am flattening them a little on top. I'm not pushing down at all because I don't want them to fall into the gravy, but just as I'm getting them off the spoon, I'm flattening them just a little because I find they bake a little better. A little quicker. Okay. So this is what mine look like. So I have 5 biscuits on top. Your oven should be preheated by now. If it isn't, just wait another minute or 2 and it should be up to temp. And what we're going to do is we're going to bake these for 25 to 30 minutes. Mine usually take the full 30 minutes. And what we're going to do when they come out of the oven, you'll see them light golden brown on top, little brown spots on top of the biscuits. Your other stuff will be bubbling. And what you'll want to do is you want to take a clean fork and just kind of lift up one of the biscuits and see if it's doughy. So if it's doughy at all like it is now, on the bottom, put it in for another 3 to 5 minutes and then recheck it because you want it all cooked through. Depending on your oven, where you put it in your oven, it may cook a little differently. I usually put mine in like the second to the top rack. That's what I do. You can put it on the middle rack or the second to the top and that will be fine. But you'll just want to do that check to make sure your biscuits are cooked thoroughly. And I'll be back when mine's out of the oven. So mine is out of the oven and it looks like this. Nice and golden brown on top. Everything's bubbling, so you know it's cooked and nice and warm. And all I'm going to do is check on the bottom of the biscuit, one of the biscuits, to make sure it's cooked through. So mine look good. So again, what you want to make sure is that you don't have it looks doughy raw. If it looks nice and fluffy and cooked like the rest, then you are all set. So let this cool a little bit, maybe a couple minutes, and then you can serve it and store any leftovers in the refrigerator. Enjoy!